Welcome, everyone. Very interesting start to this show. Seems you all got a little bit of a candid camera feed, but welcome to TAKESTOCK Live, investor webinar series. It goes live every Wednesday, 15 minutes after market close. We're starting a little bit early this time for technical reasons, let's call it. This first season will run until the end of June. The 24th of June is the concluding episode. The second season after July break starts in early August. Next week, continue here. Thank you very much. This is Mining Month in association with Calgary Mineral Exploration Group and the Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy and Petroleum. Thank you for their support and making Mining Month happen. Next week, care of Sterling Merchant Capital, will be having Corvus Gold and Step Gold on the show. We would also like to thank the TMX Group and TSX Venture Exchange, our event partner, for helping us keep the conversation between companies and investors going in these very unusual times. We also recognize the vital support provided by our core sponsors, Fasken, MNP, Leede Jones Gable, Olympia Trust, and the CSE, who helped us launch the forum back in 2014. Thank you also to our extended network for their support in launching this new initiative, to the Manitoba Saskatchewan Prospectors and Developers, to Conduit IR, CHF Capital, and many others. In particular, we'd like to thank also Investmentpitch Media and the Newswire for helping us get the message out. I will now turn the microphone over to my colleague and our moderator for the first part, Mark Francis. Take it away.
Thank you, Raj, and welcome all of you, our attendees and guest presenters. First, note our disclaimer. This presentation is for information only and is not a solicitation to buy or sell stock. Companies pay fees to present at TAKESTOCK, and TAKESTOCK and its principals, namely Raj Joshi and Mark Francis, may have equity in investments in companies we invite to present, may consult to the companies, and make no representation or investment or other recommendation in regards to these presenting or any other companies. You should do your due diligence and seek professional investment advice. Some housekeeping matters for attendees. You will note a red button on your screen. If you lose audio, just click it and you will be reconnected. Normally we run just under 45 minutes, but today after the Q&A panel portion, we will allow extra time at the very end for geologically, technically minded people in particular. The chat board will be utilized in this session in particular for this. Please be clear about to whom your question is addressed. Today we have guests from 3 companies active in advancing mineral projects. Each company will have a presentation with their PowerPoint, followed by a panel discussion with Q&A moderated by Teresa Lavender and James Faraday, who together help run the local Calgary branch of Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy and Petroleum. We encourage you to connect with the companies directly in order to get detailed information. Contact details for the presenters can be found on our website, takestocklive.com. So our 3 presenters today are James Sykes, VP Exploration and Development of Appia Energy, symbol API on CSE, who has over 14 years of Athabasca Basin uranium exploration experience, in particular leading the discovery team for NextGen's 350 million pound U308 Arrow deposit, and also working on other deposits such as Hathor's Rough Rider. Claudia Tornquist, a Master's of Engineering, an MBA, is the president and CEO of Kodiak Copper, symbol KDK on the TSX Venture. She was formerly general manager at Rio Tinto, working with Rio Tinto's copper and diamond operations, and held the position of executive vice president business development for Sandstorm Gold. And we also have with us Mark Smethurst, BSc Geology, MSc Geophysics, a PGEOL, and also a CFA Level 3 candidate. He is the COO of Tocvan Ventures, symbol TOC on the Canadian Securities Exchange, and has held a number of executive management roles relating to acquisition and development of mineral property assets, as well as working on mine development in a variety of roles. So let's start right off with James Sykes. James.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you everybody for attending. So this is Appia Energy Corp. We are a rare earth element and uranium exploration company up in northern Saskatchewan. I've only got 6 minutes to talk, so a lot of what you see here you can find on our corporate presentation online at www.appiaenergy.ca. Down here, disclaimer. Rare earth elements, what are they? Well, basically they're the seeds of technology. Not a lot of people know what they are. They're in the news, yes, but again, the understanding still isn't there. They're everywhere though. In any type of technological application that you have, you can basically find rare earth elements in there. And the global demand is growing. For a long time, from the 50s to the 80s, the Americans were basically the major producers, but then for the last 40 years, the Chinese have been the global dominant suppliers of rare earth elements. But the Americans have recognized this, and they really want to get their hands on develop a rare earth supply chain. And Canada is working with them in this capacity. So where does Appia come in? Well, we do have a beautiful portfolio of exploration projects in northern Saskatchewan. Our rare earth element property, Alces Lake, which is just by the Northwest Territories border up there in the red. And we also have some 3 uranium properties that I'll briefly touch on. But most of this presentation will be about Alces Lake. So what do you need for a viable rare earth project? Number one, grade. Grade's definitely important. Mineralogy is even more important. And again, the composition. Having the pilot plant is great. And also having radiation environmental management. Again, you need these to move forward. Fortunately for Appia and our Alces Lake project, we actually have all of these in place, so it's great, great for us going forward. Just to show some of the zones that we've been working on, and again, seeing some of the high grades you get here. We're seeing zones that have up to 31% total rare earth oxide, even zones with 8% total rare earth oxide. What does that actually mean, though? Well, we'll get to that very quickly. And just to show some what the monazite looks like at surface. Again, these are massive monazite. You don't find this anywhere else in the world, which is why this is so unique up there. And we keep finding multiple zones with these type of occurrences. So again, very lucrative. You can see how easy it is to extract from the ground. This is pre-concentrated ore. So that's the beauty of it all. Looking at our grade, you can see the Alces Lake grades, the summary of all of our grades on the right-hand side of the graph in the red. So 16.6. You need this type of grade. You need a very high grade, and again, the right mineralogy to move a rare earth project forward. I can't express that enough. We meet that. 16%, it's the second highest grade deposit out there in the world that we know of so far today. Pilot plant. This is where Alces Lake and Appia kind of set ourselves apart from the rest of our peers in the industry, is that we do have access to a pre-existing pilot plant in Saskatchewan, which is the same jurisdiction as we have. And there's a rare earth extraction lab that is also there. The guys who operate it, they've got 20 plus years between the both of them to extract rare earth elements from monazite. They've developed their own flow sheets. They know how to do it. This is not something new. We're not reinventing the wheel. These guys can do it. So again, this is a huge cash saving for us. This allows us to be able to basically, increase the size of our deposit, get to that 43-101 stage, and then we've got the pilot plant right there. What I'd also like to note is that we are still in our infancy. The project really hasn't gotten going until 2017. So we've done 3 years of exploration work, and we will continue to do so. So again, our strategy is going for that 43-101 resource, hopefully by this year and next year. Highlighting some of our showcase ore, 16% TREO over 15.5 meters, starting at 8.7 meters downhole depth. You can consider that surface. It's right there at surface. These are exceptional high grades. If you look between the yellows, where we have a really massive high grade, 49% over 3.7 meters, again, starting within 10 meters of surface. You can't find this anywhere else in the world. This is unique. This is beautiful. So we do believe that we have quite a lucrative property, quite a lucrative work. How are we going to reach that 43-101? Well, we've got a massive property. We cover a regional scale, but to start off, we're going to follow the trends of where we know we have some some occurrences at surface. We have two 2-kilometer-long trends that we will immediately follow up. We do have a lot of outcrop in the area, so hopefully we'll be able to get this going. Made a discovery last year, 1.8 kilometers to the west of where we've been working, and that's the biotite liquid current. So we do know that we have more of these out there. And then again, looking at the property scale, so on the left-hand side, you can see our property in red, just showing the area that we just zoomed into. So that was a small area compared to the rest of the property. All the yellow stars there show occurrences that we need to visit, historic occurrences, again, to potentially increase the size of the overall property, and again, leading us towards that exploration target. Since we've only got about 6 minutes here, just getting to our capital structure, and we've got it very tightly controlled. We don't have a lot of shares outstanding, only 73 million, so that's great. We haven't even reached that 100 million mark yet. Not too much in the way of options and warrants. So again, we're tightly held, good market cap, and we have significant cash in the treasury to get our project done this summer. And that's basically us. That is Appia Energy, and that is the Alces Lake property. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James. Well timed. And now, Claudia Tornquist. Claudia.
Thank you, and thanks for listening in to a quick overview of Kodiak Copper. Please keep in mind that I will be making forward-looking statements, and you can find the relevant guidance on our website. I would like to start out with the famous Lassonde curve to illustrate what Kodiak is about. The Lassonde curve shows when investors make returns or what returns they make over the lifespan of a mining project. And there are typically two times when there are significant returns. One is at the right side of the curve, when the mine gets built and cash flows and investors get rewarded. And then the other time in the life cycle of a mining project where investors can make significant returns is typically at the very beginning. That's the higher risk, higher return end of the scale, when discoveries are made, where investors come in at the basement bottom level and can make these famous 10 or 50 baggers if a project turns out and a discovery is made. So why do we think we have a good kick at the can at discovery success? Why do our shareholders like us? We are a sister company of a company you've probably heard of, Great Bear Resources, one of the big discovery successes in Canada over the last 2 years, one of the best performing companies on the Canadian stock market, a major discovery. That company was founded by Chris Taylor, who's also the CEO. And Chris is also the founder and chairman of Kodiak and is very much involved on the technical side. He's a very creative, very out-of-the-box thinking geologist and big part of our success. We are applying very much a similar strategy to Great Bear. We focus on historically drilled assets to which we take a new interpretation and new technology. That's essentially what made Great Bear a big success, and Kodiak is very much the same strategy in the copper space. We made the strategy work right off the bat. We drilled for the first time late last year and made a discovery right with our first small drill program at our MPD copper gold porphyry project in southern BC. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. We are also financed. We were able to close the financing in March, so we're well financed, have a summer's worth of exploration ahead of us and the cash kitty to fund it. And so it should be a very exciting summer with more discovery potential. And very importantly, we have a very tight share structure. It's 37 million shares outstanding. As I said, we are about to start drilling now in June. It's imminent to follow up on our initial discovery. So we have a couple of near-term catalysts and have good news flow coming up. Then I should mention, although I won't touch on it in this presentation, we have, in addition to our MPD project, 2 other porphyry projects that we can also drill that are both also very interesting projects in their own right. So we're not a one-show pony. And then last but not least, we are a member of the Discovery Group, which is a loose alliance of companies around John Robbins, who many of you will know. He's a mining entrepreneur with a tremendous track record. And for us, being part of this group, which includes strong big companies such as Great Bear or Bluestone Resources, for us being part of this group is very, very valuable. It gives us access to great technical expertise, to capital, to contacts, and it just gives a lot more credibility and makes us a much stronger company than we would be out only by ourselves. I mentioned we made a discovery. Here's the project where the discovery happened. It is called MPD. The couple of key points I'd like to highlight. It is located in a very established copper and gold producing belt, 3 hours drive from Vancouver in southern British Columbia. It's an area with a number of large mines, 2 of Canada's largest copper mines, Copper Mountain, Highland Valley, only kilometers away, and many other projects. So all the infrastructure you need for a mining project right there. It's a big, big, big advantage. One of the key things why we acquired the project. What I'd also like to point out, it is a large landholding and a porphyry project. Porphyries, I'm sure many of you know, are large systems by their nature. So this is a big prize. If we can make it work, this will be a big discovery. That will be a project that is of interest to major companies. Here's just a zoom in on the claim holdings, just to highlight the infrastructure and how close it actually is. You see highways here, one at the top, one at the bottom, a transmission line. It's literally only a kilometer to the ground. And that makes exploration obviously a lot cheaper, and also the hurdle this project has to take to become successful is much lower than for a project much more in a more remote location. These are some of the historic drill results, and I won't bore you with the details, but 2 important points to take away. There has been a lot of historic drilling, over 50 years, 129 drill holes, and almost all of those were very shallow. And that's where our different approach comes in. When Chris Taylor walked to this property, he said, you have to drill deeper. That's where the potential is. That's what we did. And here is what we found. This is the discovery we made on our first drill program. We drilled 800 meters, a hole mineralized top to bottom, 763 meters of 0.28% copper equivalent with large zones of much higher grade mineralization. That's a great starting point. It's the best hole in the 50-year history of the property by a long margin. And that kicked the door wide open for our next drill program. Here is a
Claudia,
picture.
you're going to have to finish up.
That's what we're going to do in June. Thank you. Okay,
we'll take a closing remark.
Yep, I was just about to say this is our 10 square kilometer area with a multitude of further targets where we'll be drilling in June to follow up on our initial discovery. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Claudia. And now, Mark Smithhurst. Mark.
Hi. This is the PILAR project in Sonora, Mexico. And this is the flagship property for Tocvan Ventures. You can find the complete deck on Tocvan Ventures website. And in there, you'll see the forward-looking statement. What I've done here for this 6-minute presentation is just take the guts of that deck out and bring it out here. So we're in a good location. We're in Sonora, Mexico, and the state of Sonora is the leading gold producing state in Mexico. And Mexico is the 8th largest gold producer and first in silver production. We're not far from Hermosillo, about an hour-and-a-half drive from Hermosillo. That's the capital of Sonora. About 1 million people are there. And we're not far from La Colorada mine. And La Colorada is has the same type of mineralization, the same deposit type, is northwest of Pilar, about an hour's drive, and La Colorada has one of the largest silver reserves in the world. So we're in a pretty good neighborhood. The project itself is just outside of a town called Suaque Grande, a pretty nice, warm town, good, warm people, about a population of 1,000. There has been about 17,500 meters of drilling over the last 20 or 30 years. Yeah, 25 years. And they've had some pretty good intercepts over the years. This is a gold silver epithermal deposit. And there have been some pretty good intercepts. You'll see it on, if you can look in and here, you'll see it here, but you can also see it on the deck if you download it from Tocvan's website. But there have been, I'll give a few examples, 13.5 meters at 5.6 grams of gold, over 40 meters at 0.7 grams of gold, over 61 meters of 0.75 grams of gold. So that shows continuity in those intercepts. There have been some high-grade hits as well. It's good to have the long intercepts, and it's good to have the high-grade hits. So over here, you'll see more of those long intercepts. So 66 meters at almost a gram, 37.5 meters at over a gram, and some other significant hits, such as 8.8 grams over 3 meters. Carry on. This is the drilling that happened in the mid-90s. This is the first drilling. One of the biggest hits and grabbed my attention is a hole called S10. And I had 16.5 meters of over 53 grams per ton gold and over 53 grams per ton silver. So that's some pretty significant hits. There's other intercepts of 13.5 meters of 9.6 grams, 7.2 grams of silver. And we can carry on with looking at those intercepts. Let's see. So in November was when we did a due diligence survey, and this is a part of the option agreement to option this property. And what I did, I went out there and I looked at those soil assay results that Colibri did, and I went out there and looked around at the outcrops and took some samples. So this is across the entire property from northwest to southeast. That's the trend of mineralization. And you can see some pretty big hits here where we're getting about 323 grams per ton silver. And that's midway up on the property. At the bottom of the property, we can see high grade results for gold and silver, and we're also showing some lead. That's common. I mean, you're going to get gold, silver, lead, and zinc in epithermal systems, and this is a low sulfide epithermal system. Epithermals are structurally controlled, and so you'll find this mineralization inside the structures. So it's important to know what the structures are. You'll see that there are other high-grade hits from surface samples, 172 grams for silver, up to 23.7 grams for gold. And this is across the entire property. So you'll see in the northwest area that we did, or that there is over 17,500 meters of drilling. And that's in the North Hill zone, the main zone, and the Fort Trench zone, but mainly in the main zone and the North Hill zone. And And then from those results in November, and the assay results in November, we can see that there's a second parallel zone of mineralization that appears here. Now, this is following structural trends throughout this area. So there's a structural trend that goes northwest southeast, and we know that there's some shearing that goes perpendicular to that. And that's a part of a basin extension that happened about 30 million years ago. So it's opened up this area and created dilations for the inflow of fluids, hydrothermal fluids, to deposit out this mineralization. Am I already like past my time, Mark? Am I? Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Holy.
So give us a close. Give us a 15, 30-second close.
All right, I can do this in 30 seconds then. So what we have here are some geophysical results and these are 3D inversions. And so you can see that there's a resistivity low and a chargeability low that are over top of those structural mineralizations where that drilling has taken place. So there's a correlation between the resistivity low and the chargeability low, and they're showing up right over top of where there's mineralization and hematite staining oxidation, which is showing up the structural trends and the targets for mineralization.
Great. There's your 30 seconds.
Okay.
Sorry, Mark. Got it. We've got to stay on track here, and our audience appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. And all right. Now we will bring back all of our panelists and bring on as co-moderators for the panel Q&A portion, Teresa Lavender, a graduate of the University of Alberta, BSc Mining Engineering, a PEng with a PEGA, and over 20 years experience in mine planning for multiple commodities, including coal, oil sands, copper, and frac sand. And James Faraday, also graduate of the University of Alberta, BSc Mining Engineering, University of BC, a BA in Political Science, and a PEng with a PEGA, also with over 20 years experience in mine planning and financial analysis in multiple commodities, including coal, oil sands, and frac sand. Thank you for joining us today, Teresa and James. We'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys, for those great presentations. Everyone seems very enthusiastic about your projects. I have a couple general questions that we'll address to each of you. If each of you could respond to them, that would be great. And then we'll move on to some project-specific questions. So first question, and I'll start with James. How have the current restrictions regarding travel and social distancing impacted ongoing short-term development for the projects discussed?
It really hasn't affected us too much. We were looking for a summer exploration program anyway. What it's really done was delayed our permitting. So, instead of starting up in June, looks like we can start up in August. We're hoping to. Sorry, I'm in talks with the Minister of Environment about doing some low impact type of exploration work, which could expedite some of our some permits, so that we can do some work a little bit earlier. But then for drilling wise and having to camp, it looks like August. But otherwise, it really hasn't impacted us all that much. Maybe on the investment side, trying to raise money when everyone's kind of sheltered and hunkering down in their own shells. It has provided a little bit of difficulties there, but fortunately enough, we were cashed up before even coming into the summer.
Great. And how about you, Mark, with your project in Mexico?
There's been some difficulty, and the difficulty has been sourcing out the local workers, because I had an exploration plan or a development plan in place, and I had that plan in place at the beginning of March. Then all this hit, and now you can't travel. So I've had to, instead of getting workers from Toronto to go down to Mexico, I've had to find workers in Mexico to do the work. So that's my headache. And I'm going to brag, I'm going to say that the project has kept on schedule. And, but I've been I think I might be getting cancer because of the phone in my ear all the time, because I'm on the phone trying to find people to do the work. But it's on schedule, using the people who are already down there in Hermosillo, and they're great people. And so that's it. It's traveling between countries because you can't. But other than that, I mean, it's the headaches are mine for finding the workers, but it's still on schedule, which I'm gonna brag about. So I'm all right with that.
Great. That's good. You should keep in touch with James with his rare earth minerals. Maybe he can help you out with that cancer problem.
I'll just keep the phone on speaker and not hold it to my ear.
And Claudia, how about your project?
We've been very fortunate. For us, it's more or less business as usual. We were able to finance before the COVID panic hit, and our project MPD is in southern BC in an established mining area. So we can do everything with a local workforce, and obviously we have appropriate social distancing protocols in place, but out in the bush, really, it's not that difficult to socially distance. So we've just finished our geophysics program, and we are gearing up to drill later in June, and everything is on track and business as usual.
Great. So Mark, we'll start with you with this next question. Could you comment on your current financial resources and how far they will carry you before you have to raise additional capital?
Well, we're in good shape. We got a couple of $100,000. We did a raise before this virus hit. So it was, I mean, bad about the virus, but good timing that we completed a raise before the virus hit. And you know, spending that money doing the development of the project. We got warrants out there. Drive those warrants in. We're doing okay. We're in good shape.
Great. And how about you, Claudia?
We raised $2.8 million in March, and the aim with this private placement was to fund our exploration season over the summer. So we're fully funded. We're motoring ahead with our exploration, and then hopefully on the back of some good results and some nice discovery holes, finance again at a higher level later in the year.
And James?
Well, I was actually hoping Claudia could send me some of that 2.8 million. I could actually use some of that. But I know like I said, we're well funded before this actually happened. We've got enough in the bank to see our program through. A lot of what we do is going to be surface work. So surface work is, you know, it's relatively cost effective compared to diamond drilling. And that's going to guide a lot of our drilling going forward. We're also going to be testing out some new geophysics. So yeah, we're pretty cashed up for it. It would be nice to have more so we can do some larger surveys, which that time will come. Hopefully the news from the summer will get us there.
I think you're muted. There you, yeah.
Nice fault.
All right, there you go.
Thank you. So we're just going to go on. We're starting to get some questions into the chat box, so we'll just go on to our direct questions, and then we'll move on to some other participants' questions. So for James, with your Appia project, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and the willingness of North American companies, governments to take on China, and a rare earth elements battle was non-existent. There were some developments in late 2019 with the U.S. Memorandum of Understanding regarding REE. However, COVID-19 has perhaps changed North American attitudes towards China. In light of this changed attitude, do you sense a newfound willingness to take on the Chinese in the REE sphere?
Yeah, thanks. I think you kind of hit what I said earlier on in my presentation, that nobody understands rare earths or the rare earth market. The world has actually been looking for a supply chain to be developed outside of China for the past, well, I'm going to say at least the past 4 years, but I'm pretty sure it's been more than that. I've only really gotten into the game in the past 4 years. So yeah, the States are really going into it. We know the Europeans are looking for supply chains. Even Canada is looking at developing a rare earth supply chain. So this is a global thing, not just strictly for stateside or North America.
Yeah, that's great. It's always interesting to see the dynamics, read the dynamics in the news between Western markets and foreign interests.
Okay, well, and thanks for that, James. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, how our governments and how the public reacts coming out of this COVID pandemic to supply chain issues and just generally how we're dealing with China and how we've dealt with them in the past and how we're going to deal with them going forward. So.
Oh, actually, before you guys jump on to another question with somebody else, I want to kind of expand on that maybe a little bit more. Jump back to 2010 when rare earth prices were spiking, and they were through the roof. If you had a rare earth project, you were making money. How many of those companies, over 100 companies, got into production in that time? One? Yeah, about one. So why didn't the rest get into development? Again, it goes back to your mineralogy, which is key. It goes back to your grade. You don't have those, you're not moving forward. And this is why I keep really pushing this about our Alces Lake project is we have what it takes. We're just missing one factor, one little element, and that's tonnage. Get that? And this is a project that will run. We've had rare earth professionals from Europe, from the States, from China, who have all said the same thing. They love what they see. They think this will move forward. It's just a matter of tonnage. So yeah, rare earths are a little bit tricky. You can pump a project as much as you want, but if you don't have the right elements, you don't go forward. And that's why, again, you go back to 2010, no one's gone into production. It's not simply because the Chinese have dominated the world and put all their controls on everything. They can mine for whatever dirt cheap prices that they want. But there are other factors involved that not a lot of people actually are aware of.
Yeah, as a mining engineer, I'm interested to see that mineralogy and how it produced itself, and be interesting to see how it will be capitalized.
Let's go. So we'll go to a question for Claudia. Claudia, I grew up in the Okanagan. It's nice to see a picture. Your map had Brenda Mines on there. My grandfather was involved in Brenda Mines when it started up. So it'd be nice to see another mine start up in that area. I'm not see what happens. But anyways, you talked a little bit about outside the box thinking of Kodiak and taking properties that have been perhaps explored before, but you guys are taking a little bit of a different approach. I just wonder if you could just expand on that a little bit, or give us an example of what you're doing differently, that's making what you perceive to be the difference in these projects or properties.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are two things I would highlight of why what we are doing differently with MPD than what's been done in the past. Firstly, we, for the first time in decades, have consolidated 3 adjacent projects. And if you know porphyries, they are large systems. Having only a small bit of it doesn't really make sense. And we are now, for the first time, in a position to look at the entire picture, which is already a great starting point. And then where we really took a different spin, and I try to highlight that in my presentation, is we just drilled deeper. Historically, this project was explored for the last 50 years, and very typically companies would drill 100 meters down, 200 meters down, and it's only a relatively recent phenomenon that companies drill deeper for porphyries. And just as an example, one of our peers, GT Gold, further north in BC, they drill down to 1,500 meters very successfully on their porphyry project. And so, yeah, that's a different approach we took. We drilled a hole that went down 800 meters, and right off the bat made a discovery. And that hole, by far and away, is the best hole that was ever drilled in the 50-year history of the project. So very encouraging start, and obviously lots more work to come. You're muted.
Sorry, I'm
Can't
muted
hear
again.
you.
Thank you, Claudia. That's a great answer. Thank you. Now a question for Mark.
Mark, always interesting to see projects in different areas, and while Mexico is in North America, it certainly is a different mandate there. So in Canada, under current circumstances, development of a project from concept to mining can take 12 to 20 years. From an investor's perspective, this lengthy timeline can be problematic. How does Mexico relate relative to Canada in terms of project timeline length from exploration to discovery to mining?
It is quicker in Mexico. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, it is quicker in Mexico. But further into your point, the reason why I targeted this property for optioning and getting into Tocvan is because it's already had a lot of exploration and building on it. So this project has had 25 years of work on it. It's got 17,500 meters of drilling. It's got all of these results. So there's a lot of things already known about it. So that moves this project from green stage and through exploration and gets it really close, if not at the development stage. So there's a concentration of drill holes, like 17,500 meters in the northwest corner. That data is not technically, legally a resource estimate, but there's enough there that you can start building it. You don't have to start from scratch right now and do 20 years of work and millions of dollars, because it's there. And you can use those results that other people have done in the past 20 years and start building that out. So that's one of the great things about this project, is that it's right on the verge, in my opinion, forward-looking statement, in my opinion, is right on the verge of development stage and can start building it out from here.
It's good to hear. You had some very positive results in some of your drilling.
You know, like, can I carry on? Like, I love those results in the drilling, and then the survey assay results as well. The work that was done in November. I mean, it shows like a second parallel zone of mineralization from surface samples. Are you there? Your camera just went blank.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm leaning forward to look at something else, and I don't think you need a close-up of me. We're still listening.
We're still looking.
All right.
We're just looking.
Well, my
have some
answer
questions.
has ended.
We just have some questions from the chat side of things. I'm just trying to read some of these questions.
I'll just read a short question that we can or Mark has something to say.
Yes, just briefly to let the audience know that we're ending the structured part, the normal structured part, and we're welcoming technical questions and other questions, in particular from the audience. So don't be shy about using that chat board, which you can access on the right portion of your screen. And James and Teresa and James will look after that, those questions. So thank you. But
Yes, we welcome any technical questions. As mining engineers, we often, well, we're not left to interpret the results. We're giving a model, and then we proceed with the economics and determine the viability of a project rather than interpreting the results. So any technical questions are welcome. So I guess an easy question that we can read from where our screen is. We'll just continue on with Mark. A question from Fidel Montague. Mark, when do you think TOC will start drilling?
Oh, I expect the fall. I was hoping for September, but I'm at the mercy of the government, airlines, borders closing. So the best answer I can give is the fall, late summer, early fall, and the whole work that we're doing now is to define those targets: the geophysics, the structure survey by structural geologists, XRF, soil surveys. We did a soil survey across the whole property. All this work that we're doing now is to define those targets for this epithermal system, and then test those targets with a testing program through drilling. And I hope before the virus, I was thinking September. I'm hoping for Thanksgiving, depending on this virus. I don't belittle it.
No, there's obviously a lot of unknowns with
Yeah.
the virus. It's sometimes hard to answer the questions.
Yeah.
I don't know if he answered this.
So, James, we see you've been working on the board, but you might want to expand on some of these questions. So I'll just ask read the question from Chris Noy. More of the general question about commodities. Uranium is on a bull run with prices that haven't been seen in many years. In your opinion, is this a function of the renewable pie growing or just a byproduct of tumultuous markets buy-up? Will the demand for uranium keep growing even if commodity buy-up settles down? I'll let you take those.
Yep. Yeah, sure. This isn't my first rodeo on a webinar, so I'm used to doing the chat as we go. So that's how I was answering those. But yeah, uranium has been on a tear as of late, which is great. About blink in time. I'm tired of all these government agencies going out there and saying, "Oh, the world, we need to get rid of CO2 emissions." Blah blah blah. I say, well, yeah, you want to do that? Go nuclear. That's the best way through this whole situation. You know, it's the best energy source out there, lowest CO2, but nobody seems to be doing anything about it. Very frustrating. So after Fukushima, the world kind of shut down. Utilities they didn't know what was going to happen in their utilities. A lot of these plants, they're kind of long-lived, and so they have to be refurbished and so forth, which they didn't know if they're going to be shutting down, if they're going to be prolonged. But a lot of them do look like their life expectancy is going to be extended. So that's fantastic. So yeah, after Fukushima, the price just kept dragging down and down and down. That's because these utilities were not they were not signing their contracts. The contracts actually all ran out not too long after Fukushima. And so they weren't signing on. They were just buying off the spot price. There was some stockpiles, especially in Japan, that were out there. So then with prices so low, a lot of companies couldn't actually make money anymore. So operations in Australia were shutting down, in Africa, stateside, and then the big players in Kazakhstan were shutting down, Cameco were shutting down, and so this has really taken a lot of the supply out of the equation, and so now we're actually past the tipping point where we are now in a situation where the foreseeable demand is greater than our supply. So this should have a major impact on the uranium price, which is why it has gone up in the past few months, actually since March, but this should keep going. And again, with more utilities being brought online, especially in China. China is going nuclear crazy, which is excellent. And small modular reactors, once they start taking hold in the next 5 years, hopefully even sooner, we will see more. We will see a resurgence of uranium demand in the whole marketplace in general.
Great, thanks, James. We have a question here from our TAKESTOCK cohort and host, Mark Francis. Claudia with KDK. Do you have any early indication of the metallurgy of the discovery, and are there any variations with depth?
We have not done any metallurgical testing yet. It's too early for that. But what we do know and what we do look at is at producing mines in the neighborhood, and in particular Copper Mountain, which is 30 kilometers down the road from our project. And Copper Mountain is in many ways a very close analog to what we see at MPD. Similar mineralization types, similar host rocks, very similar structural controls. So we're very encouraged by that, and that's obviously when you're at the exploration and discovery stage, the first thing you do to look at how your project fits in with other mines next door. That gives you a very good benchmark.
Great. Thanks, Claudia. We have a question from Al Turner. He was the moderator last week. So Mark, this is directed to you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the high silver grades. Has there been any metallurgical work done on the silver assays to assess expected recoveries?
I'm going from memory, and there has been. There was these are roll tests. You know, you're going to have to check the deck. I don't want to guess at it. There has been, and there are some results. And that was previous workers that have done that. I don't want to say a number and be wrong, but it would be in, I'm sure that it's in the deck.
Okay, thanks for not speculating.
Yeah.
Mark. A question back to Claudia, again from Mark Francis. Could you tell us a little bit more about how Corp Mountains project is a good analog?
It's just, I'm not a geologist, so I can't go, don't know the real technical specifics, but the mineralization types we see and also the structural controls we see are very similar. It's similar rocks, similar host rocks, and that's obviously encouraging to have a producing mine next door and see the same on your project.
Thank you. Appreciate the response from a non-geologist.
But agree with that it is, I mean, I guess we want to hope that it means something, that, something next door to your project is providing some meaning to what you guys are working on. So
Yes, and well, as a person who's participated in completing 43 101s, we often do use neighboring properties to correlate some results from a geological standpoint. Responding as a non-geologist.
Mm-hmm. It gives you good guidance on grade. Like Copper Mountain, to stick with the example, they mine 0.23% copper material. And when we drilled our long hole, we had over the entire length 0.28% copper equivalent. And we had large sections, 200 meters of 0.52% copper equivalent, 100 meters of 0.68% copper equivalent. So to see large intercepts of twice the grade of what a producing mine next door mines, that's obviously very encouraging. That's a result you definitely have to follow up on, and that's what we're going to do starting this month with our next drill program.
Great. Next question is for James from Renee Abreu. What is your expecting time span from now to reach the point of having industrial samples to run metallurgical testing?
Actually, I guess for metallurgical testing, we can get the metallurgical testing done almost any time. To do a little bit more of bulk sampling side of things, and to figure out how easy it would be to process everything, figuring about 12 to 18 months. Obviously, it all depends on what we actually have up there, and if we can define more resource beneath the surface.
Great.
sorry, a little bit of sense. We're just scrolling through some of the questions here.
Can't read that.
No, yeah, sorry. Questions are slowing down now. You guys have obviously done an awesome job of answering questions. Mark, do you have anything else to add? Mark Francis?
Well, I think folks have done a great job. So what we will do is move to the wrap up. And so thank you to our presenters, James Sykes, Appia Energy, API, Claudia Tornquist, Kodiak Copper, KDK, and Mark Smethurst, Tocvan Ventures, TOC. And to you, our attendees, thank you for your time today. Do go to the company websites and CDAR, learn more about these companies, and check in at TakeStockLive.com. Until next Wednesday, 15 minutes after market close, when we will have more mining companies presenting, be determined in your due diligence and ask tough questions. Mark and Raj signing out from TakeStockLive.com.
That's it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks for the opportunity,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.